I'm getting ready to edit this video, and I just kind of wanted to do a quick update on the setup here. This is the original bike battery, the 26650s. That doesn't mean much to most people. Hang on. Here's one that doesn't work, but that's basically what it looks like. It's about the size of a D-cell battery, only a little longer. Sort of like the 18650s that a lot of people talk about. It's different chemistry. It is what it is. Okay. So this is the battery pack that I was using for testing on the Blue Bike electric trike. Okay. Since I'm not actually riding that bike every day, let's just put it to use here. So I've got 4 of these. They're all wired in parallel, so they're all running 12 volts or so. That says 13.1. 13.1, that's pretty close. So this wire comes over, is charging my phone. These batteries are charging from the solar panel outside. This power strip screw terminal is how I connect all the batteries together. And one of these leads comes over to this 300 watt inverter. Probably getting some wind off of the window, sorry. That inverter was on the motorcycle on the Alaska trip. That inverter also was in an old Honda car that I had, running a full-size computer in the car. Yeah, I was just looking at it one day, I'm like, wait, that's the one. Anyway, so last year I was testing something and I finally blew the fuse on that. I had that for Y2K, so that's at least a 20-year-old inverter, right? Got it at Costco, probably, if I remember right. Yeah. So I took it apart, replaced the fuse, actually wired it to a breaker switch, but same diff. So yeah, it's working. So I have enough power off of that at 300 watts. I'm not doing it right now, but I could run the laptop and I could run my whole internet, including the Wii Boost and everything. So first thing in the morning, if I ran my batteries dead, making coffee and oatmeal or something like that, I've got enough power on here, I could run the laptop for 3 or 4 hours. Right, and the internet. And since the panels out there are facing east, it's raining outside, so I'm not going to go out there now. But since they're facing east, they get a charge in the morning, and I can run the laptop off of that. And then by afternoon, I can switch over to the regular plug-in because the main system is picking up power then. And it's been working great. I started off using these smaller packs, which are 18650s, realized that these 26650s worked better, and yeah. It doesn't make sense to go out and build this just for what you have, but since I had all the parts, I just put them all together, and it's been working just great. Also off of this, I've got some wires running up into the ceiling, coming down. So I just wired a few barrel jacks together, since like for instance the Harbor Freight lights use that connector. Okay, so that light right there is running off of, off of this, right? I've got another light by the bed. I've got the fan. I showed that in one of the other videos. So here's my fan, so I can run a fan all night if I need to. And that's all coming off of this connector, which is all coming off of that battery, right? It's working great. So every morning the sun comes up, I get a little bit of sun on there, and it's happy as can be. And I'm getting some use out of the batteries that I'm not doing anything else with right now until I get the next bike put together. In the main battery box, I took the bigger versions of these and hooked them up to the main system. But these are just the perfect size for something like this. Eventually, I'll probably maybe make a more polished version of that, because it would be neat if I could pick this up and take it somewhere. Like for instance, to run the pumps outside when it is raining. That would be pretty handy. So, yeah, kind of fun. I've had this Blue Eddy that Houston Firefox loaned me a while ago. And I very seldom use it because it's not really integrated into the main system that I have. But I realized after messing around up here, I've basically duplicated the Blue Eddy. I mean, not the same specs, but the same idea, right? So it's got its own solar panel now. It's got its own charge controller. It's got its own batteries. It's got some digital display. It's got the inverter. It can charge my phones. You know, I didn't start off to duplicate it, but that's kind of what happened. Yeah. Anyway, everything's got its place. When I was figuring things out in here, I only have these 2 windows in the whole house. And then I end up covering them up to block the light coming in. And thanks to my mom for sponsoring the windows. Anyway, when I was setting up the whiteboards on the walls, there's a row of French Cleat there. And so all of the whiteboards have French Cleats. And so when I was doing this side, that's exactly where I wanted the whiteboard. And I hated, you know, the window not being usable. But so there's up above, there's another French Cleat. In fact, I can just show you. And so this one is on a French Cleat. So I can lift it up and hook it. And there we go. Now we got a window again, right? And I had done the same thing on this side. That there is a French Cleat that goes all the way to there. So I can put a couple whiteboards over the bed, which doesn't make them real easy to get to, but they're visible. So if I put ideas up there, I can look at them later. All right. So that's the idea. Well, and I was doing the same kind of thing in the bus. I had a pizza box that I had put some magnets on, and I could stick the pizza box up and block the sun coming in the front window. You know, so you're like, yeah, you got windows and then you block them. Okay. Well, an awning on the outside would be pretty handy. So I've been looking at this, and so here's my plan. Eventually, I would love to build a porch off the front, a veranda or some kind of a covered porch. One idea would be to do about a 10-foot metal roof off the front for more rain catchment. That might happen, not this year. But in the meantime, I just want to do something over the window. So I've got 4 extra Harbor Freight solar panels that put out about 100 watts. If I put the solar panels over the window, I would get shade and I would get the morning sun. Basically though, there's the 2x6 up above the window. If we mount the hinges there, mount the rack, and then it can extend out. These are the racks I made for the solar water heater experiment. You can see the outline of the circles on that one still. When I got the new panels, I just reused the rack where those 4 had been. I reused this rack, put these panels on. Since I wasn't using this rack for the water heater anymore, I thought, okay, that makes sense. Since there's nothing on that one, I'm going to take it apart first. That's the kind of stuff that'll freak you out. It's not rattlesnake, but man, it's huge. Wow. Yeah, I think that showed up on camera. Holy cow. I'd just been working out here, so... Man, that guy was fast. Not rattlesnake. Thankfully, you can see the tail when I first stuck my head out the door. But holy cow. That is exactly the kind of thing I'm always thinking. Look at the doorstep before you open the door, right? If you can. The rate he was going, he could be halfway to Mexico by now. It's like right now we're into June. That peak there, the sun is rising about here right now. And winter, the sun is way over where the that observatory or radome or whatever it is. So it moves this far. Okay. So here, summertime, we want to block as much sun as we can so we could have this down pretty low. Wintertime, we'd want to have it up high enough that some of the sun would come in at least. And if the sun is like coming this way, it's going to be beside this and shine right through it. You know, kind of at an angle. So we'll get some benefit from the winter sun. From sitting at my chair, this is about my eye level. Sunrise, I will see it and then it'll immediately get picked up by that window shade, which is about right. I can still see out. I don't feel like I'm enclosed now, but I've got really good shade. I could push it up higher.
All right, good morning. It's 5:40 in the morning on the 18th of June. That makes it a Friday. Currently it's 78 degrees here. The rest of that's irrelevant probably, but anyway. So, got some mosquito netting on the bed because, well, I haven't got mosquitoes so much, but I got every other bug trying to fly up my nose in the middle of the night, it seems like. So I'll get that out of the way. Here we got your typical computer case fan. This is actually a pretty beefy one. I'm trying to remember what computer that came out of, but it's got some serious airflow. Over here we've got a speed controller. It's a PWM pulse width modulation. I'm currently running about half speed. That's just about right for overnight. That pulls about somewhere about 0.1 or 0.2 amps according to the meter on the other end. But you know, we can turn it all the way down. The frequency of the PWM gets kind of an interference with the motor's internal, I don't know, normal frequency or something. So you get that kind of weird singing sound. I'm so used to it, that's just what I associate with the way that the fan should sound, but it actually shouldn't, you know, if it had full power. My head is on this end, so I'm blowing, you know, from the foot of the bed towards the head, but it's working out really well. I didn't know if I was going to like it that way, but my reasoning there is that's where the window is. So I figured if I drew the air from the open window, and normally I don't run that fan overnight. These are not the ones from the bicycle. These are from a different kind of battery. These are 18650s. This is what I usually had. So it's got the quick disconnect. It's called an XT60. I've got the XT60 on an extension cable. I'm not going to use that for long term, but I wanted to try it out last night. So that wire goes up, loops through the boards I had in the ceiling, comes down to here. Okay, so here we got our little solar charge control. So this is just your really simple, cheap, not the Harbor Freight one, but it's similar. You know, so the ones that came with your Harbor Freight panels look a lot like this. This one's got a little light, so you can see it in the dark. The light doesn't stay on very long. Okay, we got 11.4 volts, okay? That had 12.6 last night. So I ran the fan all night and ran the battery mostly dead. Okay? Cool. This little wire is coming from outside. Through the wall. Okay? Another glorious day in paradise. Make sure no snakes. Yesterday, I built this ugly contraption. Alright? I used 4 of the quote-unquote leftover Harbor Freight panels. So this faces east. Since it's almost equinox? Solstice. I always get those two confused. So June 21st, the sun will be the furthest this way. This way is north and this way is east. Okay? So this peak here, the sun will be just about here. So these will pick up sun first thing in the morning. Okay. Get back inside where it's safe. What I've found is if you live on solar power, you're a lot more aware of when the sun comes up and when the sun hits the solar panels. And this is part of this experiment. I know the theory. There's 2 ways of looking at this. Easiest is to face south because you get most of the sun. It's that, you know, like in the northern climates, you try to have windows that face the south so that you get all the sun in the winter, and then you'd put up a shade in the summer to block the sun, or the sun is so high in the summer that it doesn't really hit the windows, it goes straight overhead, and in the winter the sun is low and so it comes through the windows. Okay, so you put your solar panels facing south. Anything that you do that's not facing south is kind of a waste. And here's why. When I put these panels facing east, I was looking at, I knew the theory, I know people have experimented with it, and it does work. My solar panels now are west of the house. That means if the sun comes up at 6:20, it'll be at least 2 hours after sunrise before the solar really hits those panels. Part of it is the sun has to get up high enough to get over the house because the panels are behind the house, so they're shadowed. By putting these panels facing east, I will get up to, we'll say 100 watts because that's what they're rated at. So I will get up to 100 watts first thing in the morning when the sun first comes up. Okay. But by noon, these are in the shade already, or starting to get in the shade because the sun is straight up, and these are actually a little bit under the ledge of the roof because I didn't want to stick them out any further. And then as the sun goes further west, I think yesterday when I was putting them up, by 2 o'clock they were mostly in the shade. So I'm getting from 6 o'clock until 2 o'clock, so that's pretty good, right? But because they're also angled down, after about 10 o'clock, the sun is high enough that it's past the angle of the panels. So if the panels are sloped this way, as the sun comes up, it's straight on, and then it goes up, and then it's a different angle again, and then 2 o'clock, they're completely in the shade. Okay, but by then the other panels are getting sun, so we're not too worried about it. You could also do a set of panels facing west to pick up the opposite angle. Okay. The way people used to look at this is the panels were expensive, right? Solar panels used to be really expensive. So if we bought panels and put them facing east and facing west and facing south, the panels on the off angles are completely wasted at the wrong time of day. Yes, they're getting power during a couple hours where the other panels aren't getting power, but then they're completely not seeing the sun. These are going to be completely not seeing anything after 2 o'clock. If I set up some more facing west, they would not even get sun until probably noon, and then they would get the afternoon, but then it's the lower sun in the sky, and so it's way less efficient than it would be at noon, right? So you can kind of take advantage of it now, though, because solar panels are cheaper, so you could afford to buy a few extra And in my situation, since I don't have as many batteries as I should, and yeah, batteries are expensive and they wear out. The solar panels don't wear out as fast. On the lead acid traditional deep cycle batteries, I'm getting about 2 years out of a set of batteries. Solar panels should last between 10 and 25 years. So if you do buy the extra panels, they should be a good investment. And battery technology is getting better. The new lithium batteries that are coming out, I bought one lithium battery. I figure it should last me at least 10 years. And based on what we're seeing in the electric car testing, what they're saying is an electric car battery should last, or at 10 years, it'll have 80% of its capacity left. Okay, which that's not too bad. Battery technology is getting much better. It's also getting cheaper all the time, and so as I wear out the lead acid batteries, I'm going to try to switch them over to lithium. All right, back to this whole little mess here. So the little green light just came on, so it's already starting to see the sun. I ran my fan last night off of this little battery. I tested that battery on that fan at half speed without all of this, just plugged it in there directly. I ran the fan for 2 nights off of that battery. So now, today is the first day of having the solar panels up and connected. So a lot of when you're doing solar systems is trying to get things to match. How much load do you have that you actually need to run? Like if you're just starting out, you probably don't want to run your waffle maker and your coffee maker off of solar because that takes a lot of power. Okay. Especially coffee maker first thing in the morning. This is the worst thing. First thing in the morning, I want to make coffee. I don't have any power because I ran the laptop last night. Right? So I'm like, I really want to make coffee, but I don't have enough electricity left in solar, so that's kind of a problem. But when you get enough, especially enough battery capacity, then you can make coffee in the morning. So most days, now especially, I've got so much solar and enough batteries, and now the lithium batteries, so I can easily make coffee in the morning. I can boil some water for my oatmeal. I can start up the internet and the laptop right away. And I'll be using that for an hour before the sun even starts hitting the panels, because the panels are on the wrong side of the house. So, when you have enough, you can start to live almost a normal life. Okay. So, this little battery and those 4 panels, I'm just going to look and see how quickly can I recharge that battery. Now I can run a fan, and I'm not running my main battery down overnight. Okay, so that's the important thing. If I completely fill that battery up, then I can put a bigger battery, right? And then I can do more stuff. If I don't have enough sun from sunrise until noon to fill that battery, then I know that I would need more solar panels, which I'm not going to do. But as long as I can at least run the fan, then I'm considering that a win. Plus, now I've got a shade on my window. Okay, sunrise should be pretty much, where's my finger? Sunrise should be about here. There's our new panels. So, there we go. Ouch. Kick. Alright, the sun's been up for 5 minutes already. Let's see how it's looking here. So, walk right into the spider web. Ah. Yeah, they're totally in the sun. The solar's already showing a good charge, and it jumped from 11.4 to 11.5 almost instantly. See where my shadow is over here? So if I had panels to the south of the house, this was the idea. And there's the sun. I should have originally, very early on, before the shop was here, when the bus was all I had, I'd put a few panels on the south side of the bus, right, where you're supposed to. But since I park on the south side of the bus, this was where I used to park the truck. And I always felt like the solar panels there were in the way. I was always scared I was going to drop something on them, because it was, there was enough room, but it just seemed like that was where it was most likely to have a problem. So I put the panels kind of where the house is, on the north side, but far enough away, in an area that I wasn't walking all the time, because I just didn't want to be carrying, something heavy right next to the panels, and then you trip on a rabbit and you break your panels. So that was the idea. I knew they should be to the south. The only other option really was way out here, so I could park the truck here and the panels would be to the south, but the further you run your wires, you lose a little bit of power just going through longer wires, especially when you're running low voltage DC. The other option would be to put them up on top of the roof, which would make a lot of sense, because I've got most of my roof here on the shop facing south. That was an option I considered. The reason I don't do that, though, is if like, for instance, when it snowed or the panels get dusty, I don't want to have to go up on the roof all the time to clean them. So by putting them on the ground, they're easier to do maintenance on. Or if I decided I wanted to change the panels, or if I wanted to change the angle, or do, redo the mounts for some reason. Oh, there's our bunny in the shadow, right by the cactus. I don't know that she's noticed me yet. They're so used to me talking. There she goes. Okay, so now we're totally in the shadow here still, right? You can see where the shadow all the way around. Now, like summertime, because the sun is so far, we look, this is facing east, the sun is about here, okay? So the way the panels are, because they are aligned quote unquote correctly, they're in line with the house and they're facing south, okay? But look at the shadows. The sun is behind the panels first thing in the morning, okay? So by putting a few panels on the east side of the house facing east, they're going to get that first morning sun. And then if I did the same thing, I'm kind of considering this, I could put a few panels, I don't know, maybe I just put them right across here instead of, because I don't have any windows over here, so I don't need a shade, but I could put panels facing towards the west, and I'd get that last couple hours in the evening, because by the time the sun sets, there's 3 hills, little bumps that'll probably show up better for you than they do for me on the viewfinder. That's due west, right, in line with the panels. But the sun is setting way over here again, because it's summertime, and so the sun has gone all the way around almost. I mean, it's weird. If you don't have solar panels, you don't really notice that kind of thing so much. I never used to. I'd be like, yeah, it's over there somewhere. You don't really think, oh, which hill did it, set past? I've got some shots of the sunset. It's way over here. I think it's in these big ones over here. Okay. So these panels get nothing after about 6 o'clock. And the sun doesn't go down until 7:30 or something like that now. So
That's where solar tracking would make sense. If you could make a mount that could stand up to the wind and a motor system that could, be reliable. That's kind of the thing, is you're dealing with, well, do you want to move panels around, right? I think if I did something like one Harbor Freight kit, that's about 4 foot worth. I think that shade on the front I made was 5 feet. Okay. So you could do that, I think. So then you'd end up with multiple 5-foot pieces moving. That gets kind of messy. I don't know. It's like, and then you got to make sure that when they move, they don't shadow each other. Here where they're all in a line, then we're fine. And I measured the spacing between the panels, so that this line and this line, the shadow that this casts in the daytime, it doesn't hit here. I was very careful. In summer and winter, you had to figure it all out. And so I spent some time making sure that one line didn't shadow the other line. Right. First thing in the morning, it will be almost 2 hours before these panels start getting usable power. That's going to be pretty awesome, I think. Something I should mention. This charge controller is not compatible with lithium-ion batteries. It doesn't have a lithium setting on it. So it's not properly charging these batteries. It doesn't know to stop charging them when they get to the right voltage. So I'm going to have to manually watch that. In fact, I'm going to shut it off now. So I just wired a switch so I can turn it off. Because my voltage just showed 14, which means these BMSs have already disengaged, so they're completely full. So I'm just going to leave. In fact, I'm going to we'll shut this off. That'll shut the fan off. These batteries are full. I can't use this because it doesn't work. I'll just shut the solar off and we'll waste the next 2 hours of sunshine because I got nowhere to put the power. I think as I develop this, I can do more and more with it. I could wire DC lights like that one right there. And I've also got one over the bed. And that's what I'm likely going to do. If I switch this, right now it's coming off the main system, off of that, which is coming off of the main battery. But I could move that to this system. So I'm just what I'm kind of playing with here is how small of a battery and one solar kit, which is 100 watts, could be useful. Because I'm looking at the bicycle. When I'm going further than just going to get my packages, I want to do bicycle camping. So if I had a small enough solar system, for instance, I know these will run the fan all night. So if I'm sitting there in a little tent trailer behind the bicycle, that's all I would need to run a fan and a light and charge my phone. Okay, now obviously the solar system on the bicycle is also going to be powering the whole bicycle, so it's going to be a little bit bigger than that. But if I wanted to have enough power to leave the campsite in the morning on the main batteries, I could run a couple of these separately and run a fan overnight and not run the main battery dead. And it was just kind of for fun a little bit. I've been doing solar for 4 years now, but I haven't really looked at small systems. I kept upgrading. I didn't really test these with the solar before. So I'm seeing some things that work and some limitations. Okay. And so far, I would say the east-facing solar is working great because it fully charged, well, in 4 hours, because the sun rose at 6. So it's 4 hours after sunrise, and I'm topped off. I can't charge anymore. Great. So yay for that. I could put 2 panels out there instead of 4, and I'd have enough. Next step after that would be run the internet, and the next step after that is run the laptop. Solar is catching power for hours into the battery. If you have enough power in the battery, you're not limited to 100 watts. You're limited to how much battery you have. That's the idea. Okay, it's Sunday about noon on June 20th. So I finally got my little inverter working. It had a blown fuse, so you got to take the whole frickin' thing apart, unsolder the fuse from the main board. In the process of that, I was thinking, all right, I don't know if this is going to be something I can reach easily. Yeah, so I've got these 30 amp breaker switches. I figured, well, a 30 amp breaker is as good as a 30 amp fuse. Let me replace a $1, no, probably a 10-cent fuse with a $30 switch on essentially a $30 inverter. But nonetheless, breaker off, on, good. So now if the fuse blows, it's not a fuse, it's a breaker, so I can just reset it, which is really handy. Now here's the funny thing. This inverter is the one that I had in my old Honda Civic car that was running a real computer in the car back in the 1990s. I'm pretty sure this is the same one. I didn't realize it at the time. I was just thinking about it. I'm like, I've had this inverter for over 20 years, right? And just a few months ago, I blew the fuse on it for the first time because it was soldered in, so I definitely didn't change it before, right? I'm like, just how cool is that? You know, 20-year-old inverter still works. Just replace the fuse. Easy peasy. All right, so panning back a little bit, so we still got the little PWM charge controller. This is coming off of the 4 solar panels that are over the window. I now am powering, this is the Amazon box battery out of the box. Okay, so this is what this is. That's got this has enough range for 10 miles on the bicycle, so let's use it in the meantime. Now we're running our electric fan because now we've got the inverter. 300 watts. I'm going to measure it. I think that uses about 30 watts on high. My internet stack plus the laptop uses less than 200 watts total. So later on I'm going to test this, run the laptop and the whole internet and the fan off of this and see how long it works. It should work at least for a little while. 100 watts coming in isn't going to keep that going indefinitely. But if, for instance, first thing in the morning, I don't know, I ran out of power in the middle of making coffee and I want to check my email, this should run it just fine. I now have this 12-volt light and the fan, and there's a 12-volt light in here that are all running off of this little, I'm going to call it the micro system, right? I have invented a Blue Eddy. I wasn't doing this on purpose. It just started off, well, let me make a shade for the window. Then let me, at least use that to run the fan. Well, what's happening is I've got enough solar power out there that these batteries are fully charged by about 9:30 in the morning. That charge controller doesn't have a setting for lithium iron phosphate. The batteries go into float. They have their own BMS that puts them into float mode, which is close to float mode on a lead acid. And so I think it's working, because I've seen them get up to about 13.9, 14, and then they drop down to 13.7. I've got the little LED voltmeter here. All right. So right now we're sitting at 13.2 and we're charging. It's almost noon, so we're probably in the panel should be getting close to being in the shade now. So this is only good for in the morning. Yeah, we're just starting to get shade on the panels. Okay, that's fine. So it's going to be like 105 degrees today. Hottest day in the last week or so. So I was kind of looking at things and I'm like, all right, let's get this working. Let's get the fan going, because now I can run this fan all night off of this system, and I don't run that system dead. So then I still have power in the morning off of the main system. Okay, that's the plan. Now at the moment this is wired as 12 volts in parallel. This could be my 48 volt pack, but I'm running as a 12 volt pack now. So they're in parallel, not series. Solar powered fan. This is the dream.